सब प्रॉपर चलता है?
कल उसके बैंक अकाउंट में 15,000 रुपए का फ्रॉड हुआ है, पता है?
इसको तो कोई टेंशन ही नहीं होती है, देखना।
टेंशन क्यों? मेरी कोई गलती नहीं थी। फिर भी फ्रॉड होने पर मैंने तुरंत बैंक को इन्फॉर्म कर दिया। आरबीआई कहता है अगर आपके अकाउंट से किसी ने धोखे से पैसे निकाले हैं तो बैंक को जल्द से जल्द इन्फॉर्म कीजिए। 3 दिन के अंदर इन्फॉर्म किया तो कोई नुकसान नहीं होगा। जितना लेट करोगे उतना ज्यादा नुकसान। और सुन, सब चलता नहीं है, प्रॉपर चलाना पड़ता है। आरबीआई कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
A quick look at the day's top news. 100 big stories from across the country and the world in just 30 minutes. Watch Express News Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. only on DD India.
I never thought that a woman is any way less than a man. I always in fact felt that she was better. I have now this initiative Peaceful Warriors to make every girl in India a black belt. That whether I get any fame, whether people recognize me or not, whether I get money, but still that is what I will keep doing.
Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. Now I'm coming to you from the Embassy of Bhutan in New Delhi. Why? I will tell you in a bit. But first, a quick word about Bhutan and India-Bhutan relations. Now Bhutan is India's neighbor. It is a member of both SAARC and BIMSTEC, and it is slightly smaller than the Indian state of Haryana in terms of area. But Bhutan has pioneered the concept of gross national happiness. Another phrase that's gained currency in Bhutan is called water is happiness. Now that's a pet project of the mother of Bhutan's king. The Queen Mother is in New Delhi along with the king's sister and foreign minister to popularize this concept. What is water is happiness all about? To talk about that, I have with me a very special guest, Ms. Dorji Ohm, the executive director of the Bhutan Youth Development Fund. Ms. Ohm, thank you for joining us on DD India. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Ramesh.
Thank you, appreciate it. If I can begin by asking you, Ms. Ohm, about the YDF. What is the Bhutan Youth Development Fund all about, and if you can just share an overview with our viewers.
The Bhutan Youth Development Fund was one of the first NGOs that was initiated, in fact founded by the fourth king. It was a project within the Ministry of Education,
I see.
and with the endowment fund from His Majesty, and the fund had to be used for youth development activities. And over the years they found that perhaps it would function much better as an NGO. So in 1999, Her Majesty the Queen Mother Ajit Sringpem Wangchuk as the president then became an NGO. So we are like 22 years old actually. Since then we have been doing numerous programs for youth development.
Now, Ms. Ohm, the Queen Mother is in New Delhi to promote and this concept of water is happiness of the YDF. What is the gala dinner all about, the fundraising event that's taking place in New Delhi? And is it an annual event? If so, when was it first started?
The Water for Happiness is actually a movement. It was an idea that was conceived by Her Majesty when she looked at, with her we used to travel a lot around the country. So it was when she started noticing that a lot of our watersheds were drying, and she also noticed there was abundance of water at the same time. And she was in one of the villages with some children in a little school that we adopted, and it was in that school when the children were asked, where does your water come from? Just a casual kind of a conversation, and then they said the water comes from the pipe, and some said water comes from the tap. So it became very necessary to let the children understand where the water came from. So that started Her Majesty like seriously thinking about water, and so she said we really need to do something about this precious resource, because that is our highest income generating, and yet we know so little about our water. So that is how actually the Water for Happiness actually started.
And are you expecting any guests to attend the gala dinner and fundraising event? And also, why did you choose New Delhi to host this particular event?
Why New Delhi was chosen, I think because the event hasn't started as yet. So it's very much there why Her Majesty chose New Delhi. I think I will not spoil the surprise, but she has valid reasons why. And why not? Why not Delhi? It is after all the state capital. And it is also where this, time of the year is so beautiful in Delhi, with beautiful flowers, and nice to do it in an embassy. So, and then there are of course a lot of reasons, but I can't spoil the surprise yet.
Fair enough. Let's come to the theme of the event, Water is Happiness. Could you elaborate on the theme you've chosen for this event?
Okay, the theme was not chosen by me, it was chosen by Her Majesty again. I cannot take credit for that. And why not? Why not? Why is water not happiness? When you look around, it may be invisible, but you see water. What about yourself? Your water. The being of yourself is water. So water is everywhere, but we are not seeing it. Right. And yet, if there is no water, then where is happiness? You can have huge buildings, you can have a lot of bank accounts, but then you don't have that water. What happens? So why not? So I think it's a very apt, a term that was coined by Her Majesty, that water is happiness, because water is life, and life is happiness.
Indeed. And Ms. Ohm, when we talk about water, one can't help but talk about environment. One can't help but talk about climate change. Now, is Bhutan as a nation worried about the effects of climate change? Is it becoming visible in Bhutan as we speak? So what can the world learn from Bhutan's experience of combating climate change and global warming?
Climate change is definitely one of which is threatening the global warming, threatening our country. But yet, if you look at our country, it has the right policies, very sound policies. Our constitution, within the constitution, we have to keep our environment, for 60% forest at all times. So our policies are very, very sound, We have people who are conscious about it, and yet because of, I would say, of no fault of ours, we are threatened. If you look at the high, up in the mountains, there are people who are working with bare, with hardly, this, no machines there, literally manually. They are trying to keep the level of the lakes, because if that bursts, then there's going to be an outrageous disaster downstream. So we are definitely threatened by global warming. Our watersheds are drying up. So yes, we are, and again I would like to say, perhaps because of no fault of ours, and it's time, like I feel perhaps the others also need to look at Bhutan and say, here is a little country that is trying so hard, and therefore we need to really look at that with little more attention. So I think that is one of the reasons why we are also here, to sort of say that here is a little country, hear our cry, this little country who's trying to do everything, and yet we are harmed by perhaps habits that are not ours.
Right. And you spoke about the policies. We'll come to that in a bit, but time now for a very quick break here on DD India. You're watching a special broadcast. When we come back, we'll talk about gross national happiness with our special guest, Ms. Dorji Ohm, the Executive Director of the Bhutan Youth Development Fund. Don't go anywhere.
A quick look at the day's top news. 100 big stories from across the country and the world in just 30 minutes. Watch Express News Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. I have with me a very special guest, Ms. Dorji Ohm, the Executive Director of the Bhutan Youth Development Fund. Ms. Ohm, before I get down to the questions, I want to brief our viewers about gross national happiness, what it means. Now, gross national happiness, viewers, takes into account a holistic and sustained approach to development by balancing material and non-material needs. It proceeds on the assumption that the life goal of all human beings is happiness. And GNH, as it's popularly known, has four main pillars: sustainable and equitable socio-economic development, environmental conservation, good governance, and preservation and promotion of culture. It also has 9 different domains: living standards, education, health, environment, community vitality, time use, psychological well-being, good governance, and cultural resilience and promotion. Now, Ms. Ohm, if I can come to you now to talk about the GNH, I am curious to know about this particular phrase or the domain mentioned in the document called time use. Could you explain to our viewers what time use actually refers to here?
I think when you talk about the time use, it's also the quality of time, the quality of sleep. Often, I mean, Mr. Ramesh, do you sleep well?
Well, at least I hope to.
So you hope to.
Yes.
So I think when we talk about time management, it's about the quality of life, the things that you do which are qualitative. Most of the time we are so awake in your head, and we are not in the present, but we are just looking either in the future for things that's not happened, or perhaps the past. Regrets maybe, or I wish I'd done something. So time use for us really means
To live in the moment.
in the moment,
present.
but very qualitative time.
Right.
And also it's very important that when you're spending time with your children, you spend the best time and use that time. So I think time management is something that is very difficult, but then it's not impossible.
Indeed. And Ms. Ohm, talking about GNH, I was reading somewhere that this phrase, gross national happiness, was coined by the then King of Bhutan way back in 1972. Incidentally, there's an India Connect there. He used this phrase in an interview to a British journalist at the Bombay airport. And since then, we've seen the GNH evolve, and in 2008 was incorporated into the constitution of Bhutan. Now, coming to the YDF, I'm told the YDF also has an Institute of Well-Being. What's the institute all about?
The Institute of Well-Being, we have to be very grateful to the Government of India, because without their support we wouldn't have been able to have this Institute of Well-Being. It is a beautiful place beside a river, beside a, this bountiful river and water, and in the forest. It's 20 acres of land, and we have a group of recovering addicts who are trying to live, trying to recover their lives, and to be more productive. And to do that, it takes a lot of a treatment module. And we looked at this treatment module, and it was not, we wanted to offer something that was very, very unique, something that was culturally enriching and so much based within the framework of the gross national happiness. So with a lot of, time spent on it, with expertise involved, and evidence-based cases, we came up with a very beautiful model called the happiness model. So at the moment, as I speak, there are almost 25, about 30 young people actually being treated using the happiness model. At the same time, we have something called the Gross National Happiness Values program, which, if I have to explain, is like universal human values, basically. So we have these workshops going on there, and it's more about the inside. Drug is not a disease. The traditional ways we say drug is a disease, but drug is all to do with your well-being, of your mental well-being, your physical well-being. So the model basically looks at you to become more engaged with yourself, and that you do not have to depend on sensational things that is outside, external, but rather inside, to be peace within. So it's one of the recovery rate is very good there, and it's a beautiful place. You must visit it, and I urge everyone, that we have places there, and it's a really, really beautiful place.
Sure, I hope to one day.
And retreats, do come for a retreat. Yeah.
Sure. And so talking about the activities of the YDF, besides the Institute of Well-Being, what are the other activities that you carry out on a daily basis, on a regular basis? And what are some of the best practices that you may have adopted or incorporated in your activities?
So you mentioned earlier about the 9 domains, and that actually the 9 domains actually are within our own, organization, our programs, our flagship programs. In fact, the very reason why we are here raising fund is to sustain those flagship projects. So one of the pride that we have is, of course, the earlier mentioned the Institute of Well-Being, because it's unique and it's really successful. The other is this My Gakit Village, so it means My Happy Village. And My Happy Village is basically to bring back young people from the cities to the communities, because we talk about community vitality. So we need to bring these young people back. But if you want the young people back, they have to have something there to offer. So we brought a lot of young people there in that village, bringing in ecotourism, bringing in social enterprises, and then that's how this little school that I was telling you about, when we asked them where does the water come from, and this little school now has a curriculum, not curriculum, but I would say an approach. The approach is a place-based approach. So the children have been harvesting rice and planting rice and studying the weather and going and finding out where the source of water is and doing little weaving. At the same time, they're also doing computer. So these are some of the things we do, besides helping the young people to have skills so they are useful. And we also give a lot of scholarships, like the United World College scholarships. And then one upcoming project is the Institute of Bhutan Institute of Design, and we hope that again this is something that is envisaged to happen pretty soon, and we hope that we can tie up with one of the prestigious institutes in India.
And coming back to the issue of water, Ms. Ohm, a key focus of your organization is people downstream of the Himalayan riparian system. Now, there are 3 or 4 key words here: downstream, Himalayan, riparian. Could you elaborate for our viewers what this phrase actually means and what it stands for from your perspective at the YDF?
If I speak from the context, in our context, we have a lot of a community living up in the highland. The lake that, the glacial lake that has formed as a threat to the country. There are people who are watching this, people who are lowering this level. And then downstream is Punakha Dzongkha. It's people like us who are staying there. So what happens upstream impacts downstream. And likewise, people who live downstream, I mean, if you look at the foothills, eventually our rivers all flow into the Brahmaputra. And Brahmaputra is such a sacred river. And we are responsible for people who live there, people whose livelihood depends on that. And it is our responsibility as Bhutanists living upstream, up in the Himalayas, to ensure that we share this fresh water, that we don't contaminate it, because the water does not belong to us, it belongs to everyone. Yeah. So I think it is that reason why we feel as Bhutanists, is we living up in the highland, it is very important. It is our sole duty and responsibility, and a human, and the people living downstairs is a human right. Their right to actually have access to that water, and we have to ensure that this is not deprived.
In fact, Ms. Ohm, your website, your organization's website, the Bhutan Youth Development Fund, has another quote which appealed to me. It says, "What happens upstream impacts downstream." Now, you referred to river systems, including the Brahmaputra. Now, Brahmaputra originates in Tibet and flows through India into Bangladesh and the Bay of Bengal. Now, when we talk about river systems and water, some people call for a regional approach involving 2 or more countries, because what happens upstream, as you mentioned, also affects people downstream. So from Bhutan's perspective, how do you see this new trend of countries in the region, for instance, harnessing dams for water, for electricity, about diverting river systems for their own different needs? So how concerned are you as a country when you see diversion of river waters and building mega dams on the Brahmaputra, which, as you mentioned, affects people downstream as well?
Well, once again, I'd like to say that as a Bhutanese, I think it is important for me as a Bhutanese, I'll speak for myself.
Sure.
In my context, it's important for me that water that I use must be of the same quality that downstream uses. As long as the quality of water that I receive is really good and I have access to that, I have to also make sure that people living downstream have that access. I cannot speak for other countries, but I think as Bhutanese, we just want to take care of the river that is within, which flows through our country or from our country, and that is our responsibility to ensure that this water, this quality of water, is the same quality that will reach downstream.
Time for a very short break. You're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. When we come back, we'll discuss more about India-Bhutan relations, particularly the joint hydro development power projects taking place in Bhutan with Indian assistance. More when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. I have with me a very special guest, Ms. Dorji Ohm, the Executive Director of the Bhutan Youth Development Fund to talk about her pet project of Water is Happiness. Now, talking about water, I want to bring our viewers up to speed with the India-Bhutan ties in the sphere of hydroelectricity. Now, hydropower is an important pillar of bilateral relations, and it takes place under two agreements, one signed in 2006 and the second one on protocol signed in 2009. Now, there are at least 4 projects which are already operational. They cumulatively add 2,136 megawatt of power, and the last such project, the 5th project, was operational in August last year. This was the 720 megawatt Mangdechu project, which has been built with Indian assistance. And there are 4 other projects under various stages of implementation: the 1200 megawatt Punat Sangchu 1 project and the 1020 megawatt Punat Sangchu 2 project, and a joint venture which is the 600 megawatt Kolongchu project, and a 4th is being finalized as we speak. That's the 2585 megawatt Sankosh power project. Ms. Ohm, if I can just spend the next few minutes talking about water conservation and hydroelectricity cooperation between India and Bhutan. How crucial do you think is the collaboration between India and Bhutan to actually conserve water using the various development projects between the two countries?
I think it must be mutual. Like we say, we need 2 hands to clap. It is necessary that we, the energy that is produced is green, and that it is not, that the people who are within that region do not suffer, not at the cost of their quality of life and their quality of time, at the cost of GNH. I think what India is doing, we are really, we're appreciative of that. But then again, it's mutual, because as long as there is water, it can be, the green power is there. But if that water dries up, then what is the point of that project, all the projects we have? So that's why we are here, that we need to do things together. We cannot do without each other, because geographically we are so close, you cannot separate it. And politically we are also so close. Our relationship goes much beyond, my time. It is something that is strong. It's a foundation that cannot be broken. And I think we need to understand each other, and only together we can actually address. We can make it or we can break it.
Absolutely. And in conclusion, Ms. Dorji, if I can talk about the Queen Mother, Sering Peng Wangchuk. She's the president of the YDF. She's also the pioneer of who has conceptualized the Water is Happiness concept as well. How involved is she in the organization's activities? I mean, is she a hands-on person? Does she interact with you on a regular basis? And what's her general perception about the issue of water and what it means for Bhutanese people?
This is a very serious and a very passionate subject to her. And when you stay, you will understand more of it. But as a president, and her daughter, the princess, she's the vice president. I must say that, I was working for the government. I was in the Ministry of Education. I was sent on deputation to this Bhutan Youth Development Fund. It was she, Her Majesty, when I saw the passion and the things that she does, the leadership that she takes, which moved me, and I said, I can find no other job better than this. So I resigned from the government, and I said, I'm just going to follow her. And that's what I'm doing now. We will not rest. This movement is going to go far, and the Queen Mother has to lead us along with the princess. So many miles to go, definitely. So you have to wish us luck.
Absolutely. On that note, Ms. Dorji Ohm, thank you so much for making time to speak to us at DD India. Appreciate it.